Go.
Good evening and welcome to another wonderful Monday night. Hopefully you're all set, ready to enjoy. John, you're giving me hand motions. You're starting to scare me. Oh, that was a woo woo woo. I didn't hear the woo woo woo.
I was
like,
trying to be,
telling me I shouldn't
courtesy.
do what I'm doing.
No. I'm just trying to, woo. It's fired up. Yeah. I was out cheering for kids out on we actually got outdoors here in Minnesota for the first time today. So they were out running around a track today. So I get to go cheer for the kids and say, "Yay, go faster!"
But isn't that counterintuitive? Because like the faster the kid goes, like you spend all this time and then it's over like really quick.
That is true.
You want them to go slow and enjoy the moment.
Yes, enjoy the moment. That's right. No, go slower on that 100. Enjoy the moment.
Take it all in.
Yeah, exactly.
Really get their money's worth for being part of the team.
That's a really good idea. And that'd be a great way to sell it. You did not come in last. You got your money's worth. Good job. A little plaque that said, "I got my money's worth." I like this. There's something here, Dan.
There we go. That would be me. If I ran something long distance.
You got your money's worth.
My 5K. I would get my money's worth. We were talking beforehand. Like my wife did the marathon last week, right? And I'm like, man, if that was me, I'd be getting my money's worth. That registration fee is really expensive to blow through it in like 2 hours.
So yeah, make it last.
Make it last.
Oh,
make it last.
That would be epic.
Hear that screaming longer. It works better.
So gentlemen, tonight we've got some different question type topics that we're going to do. This is kind of our monthly time of answering some of your questions that have been out there on Facebook, or sometimes folks send questions in. And if you've got a question you'd like to throw out for us to use on a show, just put that in the chat, whether it's a Facebook chat or YouTube chat. It should come to me tonight. May not get the name if it's on Facebook as far as who sent it to me. So if it's like my mom and she's like, "Why haven't you cleaned your room since you were like 14? It will be ignored. Just gonna say it. But everyone else, we'll get to those questions and have some fun with that. So, gentlemen, are you guys ready for our questions tonight?
Yeah.
Well, let's put a marker in and we'll be right back with it. Tonight's first question is all about overtime. When it comes to booking overtime, now I've got some of my DJ friends over the years when we've talked about it that have talked about they have a package price, 4-hour dance, and then they could book overtime in advance, or they could do it the night of, and they had different rates and different things. It became kind of a convoluted thing, but I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this. Now, there's going to be a couple of different things. Now, Dan, as a single operator, how you handle overtime, and then Cubbie, I want how you handle it, and then specifically when you are also booking your DJs, and do you pay your DJs differently when it comes to that overtime? So we got lots of ground we're going to cover on this one. So Dan, I'm going to have you start because Cubbie's going to have this big long lecture for us about how to do it and do it right.
Yeah, because I don't think I'm doing it right. No. My philosophy from day one has always been one price for that overtime. You book it in advance, you book it the day of, it's going to be the same. I try to get my couples to give me an idea of that time, and if they set it up ahead of time. But the last thing that I ever really want to have happen is a wedding or any event really that goes longer than it should just because they booked an overtime rate that was because they were saving money, right? Like, oh, if I book that extra hour, it's $150, but if I do the night of, it's $200. I never really felt good about that. I'd rather have it just be like, listen, the party's going. You want to keep it going? All right, we'll keep it going. And so that's been my philosophy from day one for myself. However, I have, and this doesn't quite go into the overtime, I flirted with the idea that's out there of just one price for anything up to like what I'm willing to do, and just not even worry about anything extra. Like you get it up to 7 hours, and if you use 4, it's still the 7-hour price, and there's nothing over 7. And all my Canadian friends are going, do you guys do 4 hours? So, for those of you who don't know, Canada weddings are like 4.5 days.
Pretty much, yeah. Except
Yeah.
they
It's the
don't
exchange
pay
rate, though, so that's
quite as
okay.
well as some of the 4.5-day weddings, but it seems to take that long.
Yeah.
Cubbie, when it comes to overtime, how do you handle it, or how do you like to handle it?
So we do have a 5-hour package. Anything over 5 hours is an additional cost. Same as Dan. It is the overtime fee is the same as if you pre-book or if it's a night event. So they get no break for cutting, for try to book early. We tried to talk to our brides that 11 o'clock is kind of a good cutoff time. Most venues want you out by 11 o'clock, in our area. So but there's some instances that they may go longer,
Right.
and that's fine. As far as the DJs, if they pay up until 11 o'clock and they're allowed to go till midnight, that money goes completely to the DJ. He collects a whole overtime rate because he made it happen. He's the one that kept the party going all that long, and they pay him directly. I don't even care to see it. And so but we do try to confirm, but mostly for music programming. Are we ending at 11? Are we ending
Right.
at 10? How's the ending going to look like? What song do you want for the last song of the night? Do you want your spotlight dance at the end where you kick everybody out, you reminisce about the day? So we try to pre ahead of time to know what time we're going to go into. But there are instances that we may go longer. Like I said, and if that's the case, it goes directly to the DJ working.
And that was really when I think I had this conversation probably 10, 15 years ago with a DJ who had a larger multi-system company. And his idea was he wanted to book 3-hour wedding dances. And that was, he'd really shy away from booking a 4-hour, because then he could pay his DJ, his staff person, so much for setup, so much for the dinner time, so much for travel and all that. Then he had the 3-hour dance, and then everything after that would be gravy for the DJ. In essence, it would be that idea of a true bonus for the DJ. And when he was able to do that successfully, the DJs loved it, because then there were times they were able to get 2 or 3 hours of overtime, and even if that's $100 an hour, that's probably more than they were getting paid, especially at that time, for their work in service. So how do you, if you're going to they decide they want to go overtime. So let's just use they want to go from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and they come up at quarter to 11. They want to go from 11 to 12, and they say, hey, can you go an extra hour? How do you handle payment of that? Cubbie, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Because it's mostly going directly to the DJ, they can either take cash, Venmo, whatever. If he wants to take a personal check that night, it's on him. I've never, in all the years I've been doing this, have ever had a bounce check on the night after, ever. I feel bad for those who do. Knock on wood, we just have never ever had that happen. So they've paid up to their package price up to 11 o'clock. However the DJ wants to handle it, Cash App, Venmo, cash, check, it is totally up to him.
Dan, how about yourself?
Mine's been I always required cash or credit card, because I do everything through Square, so I've got my nice little reader right there available with me, and so it's a quick with a credit card, and it's nice and easy. I will say one of the trends that I've seen lately is I have not had overtime in quite a while, not because the party couldn't keep going, but because the venues are just like, our package is 6 hours,
And you're here, yeah.
and you need to be out, or because it's a lot more barn events, even though they're kind of in the country, it's still like that sound ordinance, because they're not building a ballroom that can potentially keep the party going. They're like, sorry, we can't let you go past X, or Jeremiah down the road is gonna come at us. So
He will.
just kind of like that thought. There's been a lot less overtime than there used to be.
So preferred in our situation was cash, because we were one of those companies that have had checks bounce from an overtime and from the final payment. We've had that all begin. So cash was it. The thing that struggled, and even Lori, my wife, for those of you who don't know, she used to be DJ just as much as I did back before we had children. So from 90 probably 93, somewhere in there, to 97, because yes, she was basically DJing, I think, the month before our first child was born, just because you can still move speakers, come on, woman, let's go. Anyway, so she was telling the story to the kids about one of the nights where she had a crowd and they wanted to go overtime, and they continued to, as it would get within 5 minutes of the end time, and all of a sudden they would run around passing the hat on the dance floor. And it became one of those, yes, she was getting paid cash, and yes, she did get the money, but it was one of those things. It's like, okay, now how do you handle this part? What happens if you want $100 and they come up with $80? Do you just prorate it and go 50 minutes, whatever, the percentages how would you, that was, thankfully in her case, both of the times that they did the hat, the first 2 times, it was well over the price. And then the third time, I think that they wanted to do it, they only came back with about half of the money on that particular one or something to that effect. So she went the roughly half hour now, and then the venue said, nope, you're done. So, but that idea that you get to the end of it and it's like, okay, we're going to get you the money. Okay. So great. It's 11 o'clock. We're passing the hat. Great. Okay. So now what I'm sitting here. Am I playing music while they're passing the hat? It's 11 o'clock. I should be shutting down and packing up. But they're passing a hat to try to get enough money for me to play till 12. Well, now it's 11:05, and they still are out trying to get money, and they're still collecting. I can see money flying, but they haven't brought it up to me yet. Should I continue to play? Should I just sit here and twiddle my thumbs? That's always been an uncomfortable situation that I've had over the years of how do you handle that moment?
Personally hate the passing of the hat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really do. I've gotten to the point where I've kind of been lucky. I've not seen that. Now they say I'm probably gonna have it in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
but
you're welcome.
I've seen that in quite a while. I don't like the feeling with it. I'd almost rather do it for free for that next hour than that whole passing the hat to get money to cover. It's just, to me, it just feels icky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the guests shouldn't have to pay for the overtime. It should be the family. Or...
You would think so, but yeah, that seems to be. And I've had couples where they've been like, "We paid for the first, we paid for the party up to this. If they want you to go beyond, it's on them." And sometimes the couple leave, and I get that. I mean, it's been a long day for them, and if they book out and it's the rest of the crowd that wants to stick around, so be it. I mean, I've had venues that have come up and said, this crowd, if I pay for an overtime, they'll stick around and continue to buy drinks. Okay, so what's my discounted price for you to go overtime? See this contract with a couple? It's the same rate, no matter what. Oh, come on, you can do better than that for me, can't you? Were you going to bring me...
You're making money off of it.
Were you bringing me free food? Were you referring me business to me? Were you doing anything? I mean, to a point, yeah.
Like the old guy on Pawn Stars where they go $100 and the old guy goes 125. Like he goes up. Like, you can do me a deal, and he'll go up on the price.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
125. So, oh wait a minute, it was 100. Well,
sorry, that was 30 seconds ago before you.
Yeah.
So, okay, we talked about payment. We talked about that. I want to make sure we hit all because there was a couple of different areas on the overtime, going to the DJs, and the in advance or the night of. Okay, good. I want to make sure we hit that because this has been a big topic that a lot of people have had. So let's jump to our next question. Actually, this one's going to be coming from the chat here, so we'll jump to that right now. Andre in the chat there, thank you, Andre, for this kind of question or thought here, is talking about the time for unloading your gear and transporting your gear to site. And the setup and a teardown is striking, especially if you're in a situation where it's maybe more difficult. We've talked about on different shows, if you have stairs. Do you charge, first off, when you're breaking things down for rates, some people like to break things down and this and that. Have you ever itemized to the point where you're having a setup fee that you're charging to them, that you've shown that on that side of it so the client can see it? Have you guys ever done anything like that? No. And I think that's very uncommon, but I have seen it. I have seen DJs who have gone through, and it's like, well, we charge this much per hour and this much per hour, and they literally have gone through and there's a setup fee. Now, in a difficult situation, have you charged more for a venue that you've known you needed extra people or something to get into?
Yes.
Yeah. I've not really had to bring in the extra person. I think there was one place I did, and it worked out because the person I ended up utilizing was my photo booth person. So I kind of washed away like the extra fee that would have been attached to that person because of that. But no, I've never gotten to the point of itemizing it out. In fact, one of the, for lack of better terms, one of the spiels when I'm talking with people who are inquiring about my business is I don't charge for setup. I don't charge for teardown. because in the same respect, it's like how long it takes me to set up or tear down is on me. So is it built into my price?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But if I work fast or I work slow, that shouldn't be on the couple. So that's kind of been my philosophy. And it's kind of like the same thing of when, when somebody comes to do work at my house, like I pay them for the job. If they decide that they need to take a little longer to get the job done, that's going to irritate me because you quoted me for a job, not quoted me on that time to do that job. I had a plumber do that one time, and needless to say, not only did I never use them again, I also told all my friends never to use them.
I concur with Dan on that one. Andre, what I do, Andre, is it's a one package price, and my setup and my tear down. Any additional add-ons might be travel if I have to go like over a certain amount of miles. They say, well, that's pretty high price for a 5-hour package. I'm like, that's 5 hours of performance time. You're not taking consideration of all the prep hours, the planning meetings, the setup, the tear down. And then like, oh, okay. You'd be like, I have over 25 hours invested just in your day before then. And so it kind of justifies your price if they're like, oh, that's a lot of money for 5 hours. It's not just 5 hours, it's just 5 hours of performance time, not 5 hours of setup, tear down, and breaking it down for them like that. But I'm with Dan. It's not me. If I putz around, then it shouldn't be their fault.
And I think that whole idea, we've got our setup, we've got that, but I think one of the things that we kind of forget a lot when we're doing weddings specifically, but many events is waiting time, is that we have to set up, and then we are basically there. We had to be set up because the guests are coming in, and in essence, we're maybe doing cocktail music. Maybe they have a band or someone playing a harp. I've had that, and literally, there's nothing I'm doing for 3 hours because they've got live musicians playing. But there was the waiting period, and I think that sometimes we don't account for our time and things, but yet. And we can't break this down and charge and say, oh, well, you're going to be paying me 3 extra hours because you're waiting. No, I think this is where that flat fee that, hey, I'll be able to entertain for your wedding and everything's going to be included and it's this price. I think that works a lot better than to say, well, okay, it's going to be $500 plus three hours of waiting, plus my setup and my tear down, and plus I've got there's green carpeting behind me. Oh, that costs more. Instead of breaking things down like that, it's just better to say, you know what, for the night, we're going to be able to do everything you need, and it's going to cost you $4,000 and a trip to the recording of Wheel of Fortune.
You brought up a topic in there, John, that I think is kind of an interesting one, is that waiting time, because I know of DJs who their contract is stated in such a way that the time begins when the guest arrives.
Okay,
because they have to be set up, and they use
next question. That'll be there.
the
Let's just do that. Let's break that down. Let's break that down. We're going to go to the next question. Will be about waiting games. We're going to put a break in here so we can have this. All right, so we're going to talk in this little segment about waiting time. And Dan, go ahead and take that where you were going with that during the end of our last question.
Sure. So what I was referring was that there are DJs out there who have this, built into their contract that their time for that day begins when the guest arrives, because they have to be set up. And they use the analogy for any couple that really kind of tries the bulk on it. They say, would if your job asked you to show up 2 hours early but not do anything, but you have to be there, you would expect to get paid for it. Same applies. Because I'm not going to be setting up when your guests are there. You don't want the DJ rolling in his gear while your guests are having dinner and setting all up and looking sweaty or whatever else. So therefore, this begins. Now, within that same vein, do you charge the same, or do you, let's say your package, or your price in your head is that you're going to do $200 an hour normally. So maybe during this time that you say, okay, well, I'll cut a little break because I'm not really doing anything, but I'm going to get paid for the waiting time. You have to be there. It's part of the time that you're doing your job. You should be compensated. The fact that they don't need you, that's on them.
And I think that in my situation, that came up a lot when we were back in those 90s, when we would be, okay, we're selling a 4-hour dance. and then you could upgrade and buy a 2-hour package of dinner music. Okay, so let's put that dance from 8 to 12. Then dinner was going to be at 5:30. Well, wait a second. All of a sudden, we've got this half hour of before the 6 o'clock dinner time, because the dinner time would go from 6 to 8 because it would be 2 hours ahead of that. Well, now we got to add another half an hour. Well, okay, great. So we can start the dinner but wait, what time do the guests arrive? Well, they're actually going to be arriving at 4:30. Okay, so now we have to add. It became this game of trying to chase the hours back and forth. And it became the discussion of would you go to work an extra hour early if you weren't paid for it? Well, no. Okay, great. But it still became this kind of, it felt sketchy, and it felt a little, maybe not dirty, but it just didn't feel right. So the direction that we've gone since that time is that it's the pack, and I used to have it where it was an unlimited package, but it was limited to a 4-hour dance, that type of thing. And it's gotten to the point where it's like, I don't really care anymore on the length of my preference is that a wedding dance that ends at 10 o'clock. Because if it ends at 10 o'clock, I can still have a Sunday. If it goes until 1 o'clock, I don't get a Sunday. My Sunday's gone. It doesn't matter what time it starts on Saturday, truthfully. It's not like it's going to start at 10 in the morning anyway. But if it goes past 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, okay, 11 o'clock, I can still have a good Sunday. But if it gets to be later than that, and if I have a travel, so we've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, anything before 10 o'clock, it's this fee unless we've got to do something unusually large, whatever. And then from that point on, it would be, in essence, an overtime situation. That's how we handle it. But yeah, I remember that waiting thing was such a bear. And then, finding out 3 days before the wedding that, oh, by the way, we need you there at 3 in the afternoon because that's when, we need a microphone. What? Yeah, well, you need a microphone for like 2 minutes at 3 o'clock. But we weren't starting till 5. What am I supposed to do from 3 to 5? Oh, you can just go back and you can go hang out in your car. Or you can we don't need you, so. Crazy time.
Sometimes I would work out when I had that kind of a situation where there was something else going on and I definitely wasn't needed. And this was probably more before ceremonies were so commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
I would, if it was a venue that I had a good relationship with and could pull this off, I might set up in the morning, or rarely did I ever do the day before, but I think there was like once or twice that worked in, and then not go back until the time that I'm needed. And so therefore I'm not setting up in front of everybody. It's a little bit of a different situation. It kind of works the timing a little bit different. And of course it's got to be a venue that's close and again, good relationship. But yeah, I get where that nickel and diming comes into play. I'd rather, I'm not going to charge for this and I'm not charging for this, but it's a matter of like, you basically need me for this many hours. You might not want to use me entirely for those many hours, but you need me because you don't want me setting up while your guests are getting dinner. So thank you.
I find that a lot with the photo booth. More so on my DJ that, the photo booth won't be used during dinner. Well, neither is your photographer. Nobody wants to see pictures of, people stuffing their face. So your photographer's sitting down, but yet you're still paying them, it's just, it's available for your guests to use while they're waiting on their dinner is what I tell them. And I have to pay my employees the same amount no matter what.
If they're there. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's the waiting game. Okay. Let's jump to our next question. So our next one is around music. This has been kind of a common discussion recently. I've seen in a variety of different places where wedding DJs, and we get accused of, because I'm primarily a wedding DJ, we get accused of playing the same 20 songs all the time. If you followed the crate hacker world, they're like, don't be the DJ who plays the YMCA and whatever, the brick house and whatever other things. That you need more variety to your music and you need to be more responsive. The question or the thought that people were asking is that most of our couples are in their early 20s, which puts them back in their party time, or in essence, the time when they would have been going out, which is now, or in their teen years would have been in the 2015, 2010 on up. And yet most wedding DJs play very little music from that era. And the question that they had presented in this one was, are we doing a disservice to our couples by not utilizing newer music when it comes to weddings? And what are your guys' thoughts on that? Dan, why don't you start us off there, if you could, please?
Sure. So I will say that I don't fall into that category. First off, most of my couples end up probably being in their late 20s to early 30s. So we're still talking like mid 2000s, mid to end 2000s. So I like to work in the new tracks, but the key is you really have to have just a small flavoring of it, because what I'm noticing is you still have, the older friends, you still have, the parents, and you still have some other generations that you have to account for. So you can't just go, super new for a large period of time. But again, hitting those teen years and figuring out the songs that are in there, if you're doing that, awesome. And if you're not, you should be. Like that I think is where that's where the stereotype comes from, is there's too many people that are ignoring that music programming piece across the board. Like they haven't ever done it. It's not that, it's just, they go, well, this meets the national request list, so that's what I'm going to use. That might not be your couple.
Very true. Cubbie, what do you think?
In my consultations, we talk music and we talk how we are going to play the fun, safe, happy stuff until about 9:30, and then about 9:30 we're going to drop a beat and kind of get dirty. That's times that your aunts and uncles are, they've had a good time, they've played, and during up until that time, I play the Brunos, the Taylor Swifts, some of the very popular, universally popular songs. But about 9:30, 10 o'clock, because once again, we're generally closing about 11. Aunts and uncles generally leave 9 or 10. They don't stay there unless they're on cleanup crew. But I'll drop a rock set late in the evening, a little AC/DC, Bon Jovi, and I guess the aunts and uncles right back out there. And then your guests are probably, so I don't know. I do back and forth. But I do try to stay with the newer ones somewhat. Like the Dua Lipa's Levitating, and I haven't had one hit yet this year that I haven't got one anybody got one that's been working really, like a really super new one that's been working this year?
I haven't playing yet.
And that's the thing is, in some of the chats where they've been making that conversation go, somebody throws out a name of a track, and it's like, okay, so it has not hit. That track didn't hit on any charts. It might be their favorite song or whatever, but it didn't make it on the streaming charts. It didn't make it on the Billboard charts, and that doesn't mean that it isn't a decent song, but it also needs to have a level of crowd recognition. And I think here's where our problem is that we think we got to be playing new music because that should be hot new music. It's popular, whatever. But the common, we want to have music that the majority of the people in a room know, so they can all engage, because that's the part. If they just wanted to go listen to new music, they could go put their headphones on and do it there. They're at this dance because they want to go out there and have a shared experience with everyone that's there. And they want to be able to go out there and sing along to a song that they know, which is probably the Backstreet Boys, as an example, that they know that song and they can sing along to it. They will know the things from the early 2000s and back to the 90s and 80s. Maybe 70s, it could be starting to get, as we go beyond that, you're probably going to get a little sketchier because parents may not have been into that when they were raising those kids. But the idea is that wedding dances, successful wedding dances, generally are ones where people are having that shared experience on the dance floor, and they're having that moment, whether it's a sing-along moment, whether it's a follow me dance, or whether it's just watching, Uncle Fred do his worm across the dance floor. They're not going to do some of those things if we're playing a new song that only the people who listen to this channel of this streaming service know about. It's a great song, and that group of people love it, but there's only two of those people in my room right now, and they both love that song, but they are the only ones who would know it. And over here, these people listen to a different streaming service, and they know a lot of great songs. They're really into that type of music. Maybe it's we're over here, we got the two people who are into the top 40 stuff and that, and over here we've got the people who are into the new EDM, and these people are into the new, whatever, the urban side. They don't have the shared experiences like they would have had from 10 to 15 to 20 years ago. And that becomes a stumbling block, I feel, when it comes to playing newer music.
I would say this though, if you have some of your mainstream artists, the ones that cross over, so you're not talking about something that's super urban, but yet has that feel and crosses over to the top 40. I think there's a lot more there than you might realize. And in the chat, some people were dropping things like, I'm good. You had what was the other one that I saw there, man? Players, which I haven't done for a wedding yet. It just haven't had a wedding since that song came out. Um, there's a bunch of songs that are there. Last year, Nicki Minaj, I was playing Super Freaky Girl, probably like 2 weeks after it came out, and was getting a lot of sing along on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can obviously hit that new, but I think it's being wise to the feel, the vibe, and the mainstream piece, crossover piece, top 40 piece, however you want to look at it, that allows it to appeal to a wider variety. Now, of course, that song, aunts and uncles are thinking they're dancing to Rick James. People, maybe that's the grandparents thinking they're dancing to Rick James, and the aunts and uncles are thinking they're dancing to MC Hammer. But it didn't matter. It was something that worked and allowed you to kind of grab, and again had a lot of that sing along that you could get away with. I don't know if I'd do Super Freaky Girl early, but you could still do early with some of those newer pieces. Again, looking for that commonality part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely there are songs out there that can fit into that category. It's just it isn't a for sureable thing where everybody knew Uptown Funk pretty much. I mean,
Right.
that was one of those moments. I mean, there will be more of those moments. Don't get me wrong, but it's just not as we could usually count back in the 10, 15 years ago. You could have gone to the Billboard charts and you could look at the top 20. And you knew there were probably 2 or 3 songs in there that were going to hit, or that were going to be decent songs that you could use at your event, whether it was a high school event or a wedding. It's like, yeah, there's a couple of songs in here I could use. Now, maybe not so much, just because of the diversity that's out there.
So one thing that I would, while we're on the idea of
Yeah.
top or music and stuff, one of the things I would encourage you to do, if you have Sirius XM, I mean, in fact, I think if you have the radio, this is a free channel that they offer. It's the Hits One channel. There's a show, Hits Bound or something like that. Don't necessarily grab the tracks that you're hearing there, but those are the tracks that are starting to get some traction.
Mm.
If you can get on them that early and start to kind of analyze them, then when you hear them come around, you're going to be a little bit better prepared for them to be there. I was doing a lot of driving this weekend and listened to the show 2 different times because it just gets repeated. And there's like 3 tracks. I instantly was like, I just had my phone, I camera shot just so I could see exactly what it was and tracked them. Am I going to play him at my wedding, next weekend? No. But the one that I have at the end of May, if they're still getting some traction by that point, oh, you better believe it. You better believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So just a ways to kind of, I look for stuff like that more than I look for the streaming charts, because I just feel the streaming charts are too influenced by somebody who's not my ideal client.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that's not going to be at my wedding.
Very much so.
Are making some big impacts, for my weddings.
Mm-hmm.
Other events, different story.
Yeah, many of the streaming charts are dominated by the 13 to 15-year-old, the 12 to 14-year-old, whatever. That's a big percentage of the users of some of those streaming charts or those streaming services. All right, gentlemen, let's jump to our next question here. All right, gentlemen, we are back. Somebody was asking a question about their schedule's getting full, they are booked up, and they were wondering if it was a wise idea to start subcontracting, booking shows, and basically hiring other DJ companies to perform those shows, since they didn't really want to expand to become a larger multi-system, but they didn't want to lose the potential bookings and such either. So, what are your thoughts when it comes to subcontracting other DJs to perform under your banner? Cubbie, I'm gonna have you start this one. I think you might have worked with things like this more.
Yeah. Man, hire them up, train them up. And I know one of the gentleman's concerns was, what if they mess up? What if they mess up my 5.0 wedding at the knot? Or, what happens if I get a bad review? Sometimes you're not able to please everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and but you're going to please 90% or 95% of the people. If their heart's in it, and you can find somebody that's reliable, has a reason to work, and is willing to work and do a good job for you, I wouldn't subcontract. I'd hire them. I'd literally put them on staff, and just make more money, provide them equipment, um, and bring them on staff, and build your business, build your dream.
So before you would say you're getting a lot of calls for 2023 dates, and you know that it takes you a little bit longer to find and train someone to be to the level you want. Would you toy around with subcontracting for a little bit for this year with the idea you're going to have someone for next year?
This might sound crazy, but we have a great network here in Iowa. Some local DJs that we just refer business back and forth. I'll be like, "Hey, Dennis, you open? Hey, Derek, you open?" Don't ask for anything in return, because you know what they give it in return. They send me leads right back. "Hey, Cubbie, you got an open?" Knowing that I'm a multi-op, they're single ops.
Okay.
They send me a lot of leads. So I would never subcontract another DJ company. Be like, "Oh, by the way, it's going to be my name or nobody's name." But I'll refer them to somebody that I know and trust,
Sure.
and don't ask for a referral fee, because they give them back. Now, if you're referring somebody and they don't give them back, maybe, maybe not refer that person anymore. But I recently had a friend of mine who refers quite a bit. He's a single lot, refers me he books up very quickly. And I keep trying to get him and his son to go WWE. I'm going to buy him tickets, but he bought them before I could. So, because I can't always refer back to him because he's a single op, right? So I always do something nice for him, get him a gift card to Fleming's, whatever, just to pay him back, because he doesn't want money, but I feel like I owe him something. Just a nice night out with you and your wife, or you and a night out with your son to WWE, who his son's a big WWE fan, and I'd love to do that for him. So just take good care of the good people and get a network with locally. But I wouldn't put a subcontractor out under another DJ company under my name or whatever. Nope.
How about Dan? What's your thoughts on that?
I've never run into the situation. I've had, a lot of times coming in, and I've thought about doing that. I thought about, kind of even bringing somebody on as kind of, I guess it would be a subcontracted piece, but just kind of that, under the table type of thing. I'm too, I, the Cubby brought up the point, like, worrying about screwing it up. That's kind of where I'm at, and not even necessarily screwing it up, but like something would happen and like they wouldn't be able to go, and I'm someplace else and can't handle the situation. Like, that is my nightmare beyond anything. Like, I had something similar almost happen with a photo booth, and that wasn't even like to the level of a DJ going out. So I won't. I'm like, Cubby, I will send them, because I got groups that will send them back to me. And for me, I'd rather have that than, if you subcontract, I don't know what some people take, but you take what, 10-20% in that situation, maybe do more. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I'm going to make more with doing the referral thing because of, building business, than I am just for that one event subcontracting, especially in a last minute situation. But if you find that that's happening a lot, as Cubby says, get that crew with you, so that you can hire, and then it's not subcontracting. You've trained them and they are your employee. Kind of plan long term if you start seeing that happen. In the meantime, just start referring.
Now, to be on the other side of it, is that there's times when you are running a DJ business as a single op and you want to expand, but you don't want to be paying employees. There is a way to use subcontractors to, in essence, perceive to be bigger and to be able to do things like that, where I would book for my two friends' DJ businesses, and then in turn they would book for me, and we technically would be considered subcontractors at that point. Whereas I would be booking a show for Dan, and Dan would go do the show, and he may do it under my banner or his banner, doesn't matter. But basically, I booked the show, and then I would be doing a pass-through type of thing. The only way it really works as a Dan being a subcontractor in that situation with me is that if basically I can book the show and it's like, Dan, here's the show, do it. That he's using his gear, He's putting together, doing the planning, and he's the one that's basically between he and the client are deciding what's going to happen. And Dan also has to have his own business. He isn't exclusively working and making money off me. If he was only making money, DJ money, off working for me, then he's no longer a subcontractor. He's an employee. And then we're back to Cubbie's idea that that's the best route to go. But there is a time where that subcontractor thing may be appealing for some people. Overall, I feel it's a problem just waiting for a moment to bite you in the butt when you're doing that. I think if you're going to want to grow and expand, Cubbie's idea is the best way to go, but then you also need to make sure that you have enough business to keep someone else busy enough. Because if you can't keep them busy enough, why would they continue to sit for 6 months when you're not booking shows for them? It's a lot more stress than just that extra $200 on a June Saturday night that you might make off somebody else's show. So, guys, we got a couple of gear questions. We're going to jump into those, and they're probably going to be just really quick ones. But let's jump to those next. Here tonight. All right, we've got a couple of different gear ones, and the first one, guys, I'm just going to take this one and we'll wrap with this one. They said they've got the Electro Voice ETX 12Ps. They've got 2 of those, and then they want an EV ETX 18 SP, which is the 18-inch sub. Which, if you've ever played with the ETX 18 SP, it is a beast. It's huge. It's a big one.
It's got wheels for a reason.
Yeah, there's wheels for a reason. Now, the question becomes what's the best way to hook this up? Coming out of your board, you've got generally your board has got an XLR. You're coming out with the left and right XLR. The back of that sub has inputs and a left and right XLR input. Or the two, you go 2 of them into the sub and take those 2 and take them out to your tops. And then you would just set the sub has in the menu. You can go and set it to the tops being the 12P tops. And the tops, you can go and set it to it's going to be over the 18 sub. Now, the problem is that having 2 tops with 1 sub, you're going to find that your tops are going to run away from your sub, meaning that if you get it set at a volume, like a cocktail volume, where you think your bass sounds great, it's like, yeah, this is all great and this sounds awesome. As you push, these tops are going to continue to be able to push and get louder and louder and louder. The sub is going to get to a point where it's not going to get loud enough to keep up with those tops, because generally in that situation, you're going to want to have at least 1 sub per top. And truthfully, in that situation, to really take the paint off the walls, those tops could stand 2 subs under them. And that would be a really good match, and you would get the nice voicing from the tops, the 12-inch tops, which I prefer over the 15-inch tops, and you would have that bass that would just hit you in the chest like there's no tomorrow. So great. It's a nice little setup. It's a great way to start. I would highly recommend that, because you're going to be able to do a lot with those 3 speakers, and then you can add the next sub, and then you can add the next sub, and you can add the next sub, and those tops are still going to be with you for a number of years, because they are a quality piece, and it's truly a situation of buy once, cry once, and you're not gonna cry because you've spent the money on those tops. So that one I'll hang on. Now we're gonna get with our next gear question right after this. The next question, somebody asked about power conditioners. Are power conditioners a must? So I think the first thing we need to define is what a power conditioner is. Do you guys want to, either of you played with these much, or?
I'm not Ben Stowe.
Okay. So this comes from.
Let me put my Ben Stowe hat on.
Yeah.
So I'll try and take it. So there's a difference between a power conditioner and a power strip. And unfortunately, the 2 ideas get confused way too often. So a power conditioner, first off, it's going to be a lot more expensive, but it's going to take your signal that you have coming from the wall, and it's going to make sure that it is a nice clean signal, hence the conditioning idea, to make it sure it is a nice pure signal and it's not spiking here, going down here low, and giving you exactly what you're wanting power consumption wise out of it. A lot of times we get the 19-inch rack mounts, and we're like, oh, it's a power conditioner. No, it's a power strip in a rack mount setup. Yes, there might be some protection in there, but it's not going to take and clean that signal up that might be coming from the wall. It's just going to basically give that power separated and maybe some protection in case it trips, very similar to like a like a power strip might do, where with the on-off switch.
Some power conditioners, as Dan was saying, they will even out the voltage, and that's probably one of the biggest things that you will find in these is that they will, from the wall. I used to have a Furman that had a little LED readout on the front of the voltage, and there were some VFWs that were like 105 or 104, and then I had one. We were playing somewhere one night; it was like 97. It's like, oh my gosh, is my gear even going to work? And then there's 122. I mean, there's such a range, and a more expensive power conditioner will basically give you 115, I think is a common number. But whatever it is, it's going to give you that voltage, which means that there's times where you may not have as much wattage in the line because of it having to do its job to get the voltage there, and there's some gives and takes to achieve that. Some power conditioners have battery. I mean, if you really spend money, there's battery backup capabilities in there. So in this day and age, I don't think they're as important as they used to be. I think at one time, if you were doing a lot of VFWs and everything was a 2-plug prong in the VFW, that just told you there was going to be problems at some point in time during the night. And all of us have, all of us who were DJing in the 90s experienced that somewhere, for surely. Is it? I don't think it is. I think with modern systems, I think there's two pieces of gear that are overrated when it comes to systems. I think a power conditioner is one. Having the ability to have a GFI in your system, maybe not. I don't have one. I do have power strips, but whatever. But I think a power conditioner is one, and the other is the DBX, where we used to have these DBX units that would have the crossover, and it had the bass boost, and it had all this cool stuff that we could go and set our sound and make it. It's really fancy, built-in EQ and digital stuff. Most of our powered speakers now have digital processing built into them. So basically you're adding another piece that we've already got in the speakers. So the power conditioner, I think, is overrated and not needed. And also the audio processing isn't needed anymore.
Definitely want to have some sort of a protection though, like something just like a surge protection just in case in there, because every once in a while you just get something, you get in a place that's kind of weird. There's a lot of Ben sells a couple of the things that you can actually put into the outlets to make sure that you're at least getting a quality outlet, like you're getting the signal that you need. So even if you're not wanting to go to the power conditioner, and even if you're like, well, I'm not really going to go to the fancy surge protector, you could do something, and those are like $50 at most, probably.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
To where you plug in and you can see that it's okay. This is a good line. That's safe to plug into. I'm not going to blow things up because I decided to use that plug. Especially if you run it where some of those places that are more, they've been around for a lot of years.
You see the charred marks by the plug-in.
Yeah,
dark.
Exactly. It's like, oh, obviously DJs have worked here before. That's a good point, Dan. And I was kind of envisioning speakers that people have said about putting some of that stuff on my coffin. Or my rack where I've got the microphones and I've got my computer and I have my controller. Yes, that goes into a Surge 1800 Joule. Does that sound right? I don't remember. But it basically it's an outlet strip that's made for a computer, but it doesn't have any battery backup capability. But that's what I have, that everything goes into that except the speakers. They go in, basically go directly to the wall. So something for the speakers and the whole thing. I don't know if I'd waste time with it, but for the specifically controller, once it became problematic to find controllers, then it's like, yeah, we're going to get one for both of our systems now. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we are ready to go to our next question. Seriously, my mouse must need some cleaning here today. Ugh. Okay, let's jump to the next one. There we go. Okay, the next one, somebody was going to be going and having their first kind of sales call with a bride and groom, and they're wondering if there were any tips to give them on how to have a successful sales call. So this is something I know both of you have done and have been doing these for a number of years. So let's kind of give a few things that, somebody who has never really sat down across the table from a bride and groom, what where would you recommend they start, or how would you recommend them have a successful? And I'll
I don't
start.
think we have enough time left. In the
I
show.
want to start this one.
Yeah.
I'll start this one. My first thing is as the old rule says, if you're on time, you're late. Be at least 5 minutes early, if not 10 minutes early, to make sure you can get, if you're meeting at a coffee shop, you can get a table, you can do what you need to do, get yourself there, get set up, and then you can get yourself kind of settled down and you're not kind of like running in there and that type of thing. Promptness, being there ahead of the game. Second thing is be dressed for the moment. That doesn't mean you have to wear a shirt or a tie and a jacket and the whole time, but you don't want to go into a place and look like a slob with a ripped up t-shirt and ripped up jeans. If you're in a coffee shop, you want to dress in a style that would be at the top of that. So a nice dress shirt. If we have Caribou Coffee around here, I'd probably go flannel. Truthfully, a nice semi-dressy flannel shirt to do something like that. But it would be a button-down thing or something that would look good, but yet it wouldn't look completely out of place in that. So dressing appropriately and being early my first two. Cubbie, you look like you got something.
I don't know. It could be gas.
Okay, that's another one. Expel gas out. Okay, go ahead.
I like to conversationally sell. Basically just talk to them. Tell me, get them to talk. The more they talk, the better you sound. Tell me about the last few weddings you went to. What did you see? What did you like? What did you didn't like? How do you vision your day? What is your vibe? Or, what type of music do you like? Are your families big dancers? What venue you at? Are you doing the ceremony there? You get them to talk. People love to talk about themselves and talk about their day. And then you just reaffirm everything that they just told you. Oh my God, I love Country Lane Lodge. You might hate it, but you loved it in that conversation.
Okay, stop right there. Let's do a little role playing. Cubbie, you're meeting you're meeting our groom Dan, and give me an example of one of those types of questions and how you would do that. Venue.
Dan,
pick out a venue. Let's do the venue side of it.
Dan, man, thank you so much for meeting me this afternoon. Tell me about your big day. How do you vision it? Where is it gonna be at? Are you doing the ceremony? Tell me a little more about your big day.
So we're just gonna start out. We're gonna get married. It's down by this little pond. It's kind of a really cool overview of where it's at. And then we're gonna go off. We're gonna do some pictures, and then we're gonna come back, and we hope to be back in time to kind of mill with everybody during cocktails a little bit. And then we want to come in. We want to eat. We want to party because we got to party. That's all there is.
You got a big dancing crowd?
I like to dance.
What do you like to dance to, Dan?
I like the current stuff, and I like to go back to like the early 2000s.
Early 2000s?
Yeah.
What about your family? Your family big dancers? Are they?
My wife's family. My my fiance's
First wife?
family is.
Your first wife?
Yeah, my first wife. Yeah, my first wife. Nobody knows about that one. No, her family is. Her family's big dancers. My family will probably sit there all night.
Oh, it's amazing. And what venue you at again? What was the name of it? And I know you set the setting for me, but where's it at?
The barn at Green Acres.
Oh my God, I love Green Acres. And Arnold Ziffel the pig is always running around there. So it's an old.
Yeah, Green Acres.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
That's the idea,
My
though.
bad.
Thank you, guys. But that's the idea when you guys are talking about asking questions and having them tell the story. And even though Cubbie has no idea where Green Acres barn is, well, he may do it if it's in his, but he can carry on a conversation and ask questions. And Dan, over the period of time, will fill in a lot of that information. And many times he's just regurgitating what he's just been told. And it builds that level of trust between Cubbie and his clients because of him listening and to be able to, hey, wow, I love that idea. I love doing ceremonies by water, by a pond. That idea that he's listening and he can engage and react is so important when it comes to those things. Thank you, guys.
I will say I do it slightly different, at least to start out. So I do like to do the whole asking questions, but the way I start with my conversations when we sit down is I ask them questions that are not related to the wedding at all. So I'm a big stories person. That's what I tell them. I'm like, listen, I'm a big stories person. So how'd you two meet? You know, what's the story behind that? And try and get them to go. And part of the reason also that leads to this is if I hear a story in what they're talking about, if I hear a story about how they got engaged and something about like their relationship, one of the things I love to do is love stories. And hearing that is something like, you know, if it's a great story, I'm like, oh my gosh, please let me tell your story. Please let me share your story that day. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then I go and, you know, if they don't know about the love story, I'll go into, you know, kind of expand upon it
Right.
and talk about it. I've had couples book me without talking about the rest of, I don't want to say without talking about the rest of it, but like, because I'm so excited about their story, that tells them I'm so excited about them that it's and it's not a fake type of thing, but that's why I asked their story, because I love their stories. I love hearing about relationships and how they develop.
Right.
And it's always kind of a unique thing. And even if we don't do the love story, it still tells me more about them that I can already start to kind of plan in my head. Hey, we might go this direction, we might go that direction, and start to kind of really flesh some things out. Paints such a big picture. And then I can be like, all right, let's talk business. And then I go into some of the questions like Cubbie's talking about.
Excellent. Guys, we're going to put a thumbtack in that one, or in tonight's show, because we are right to the end.
Wow, that took fast.
Yeah, that one went really, really, really fast. Up next in about 3 minutes, DJNTV.com/chill. Tonight is Hanging with Howie night, Monday night at 10 o'clock Eastern, and the guys will be in the chat room. For the first 20 minutes or so, they'll be recording a spot, so you can go and keep your camera off and keep your microphone off and kind of listen to what the topic is for tonight, and they'll do that. And then after that, you guys can turn on and talk and share and have a good time and such in the chill room, DJNTV.com/chill. Tomorrow morning is... tomorrow we've got a tips video hitting in the morning. Tomorrow night we got a Tuesday night with Ben Stowe, and then we have and then we've got the Tuesday night music show, which is also in a chill room where the guys record that. And then Wednesday we'll be streaming a Howie and the Tuesday night the night. And Wednesday morning, Dan's going to have a new video for us this week that he's still working on. Dan, and it will be ready to go Wednesday morning.
Monday.
Yeah.
It's Monday.
Yeah, the week's getting away. You got lots of time. You got lots of time. So yeah, that's what's coming up this week, and yeah, we got a wrap. So Dan, take us home.
On that note, hopefully everybody had a good evening and you were able to kind of learn a few things. And if we didn't get to your question, John's writing them down. We'll get to them at some point probably. But thank you very much for that. We'll see you next time. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.